You're listening to Stay on Topic, episode 18.5. If you want to chime in, hit us up on email, stayontopic111@gmail. You can hit me up on Twitter @Giltastrophe, or James
@PostJM9,
or Bob
@Bob Ricotta.
And with that, we're joined by our Captain Howlin' Mad Murdoch, Bob Ricotta.
Glad to be here.
You sound it. We've also got our Colonel John Hannibal Smith, James Post.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Set you up.
Nice.
And I am, of course, Chris Gill, the Lieutenant Templeton Peck of the group.
The face.
The face man. Just want to follow...
None of us get to be B.A. Baracus.
I think that would be racist.
Yeah.
Oh, that, and I kind of like milk a little bit, but not like BA level.
Yeah.
And not afraid to fly.
You like MILFs? Is that what you said?
That happened quick.
On a case-by-case basis. Anyway, just want to follow up on episode 17.5 from last week. We had a couple more additions to our bunker list.
Yeah, we had a great response. Thank you, everybody, for adding your input. We love it when we hear from people. It stimulates the discussion. We had a few people donate their lists after we'd actually gone on air. So I just want to recognize them. I want people to hear their lists since they put so much thought into these. Jeremy Ehrenreich, a good friend, an excellent journalist, and I consider probably the most knowledgeable person about music that I know.
No doubt. No doubt.
His list is, and I'm assuming in no particular order, U2's The Joshua Tree, A Love Supreme by John Coltrane, I Never Loved a Man by Aretha Franklin, Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, and Revolver by the Beatles.
Interesting. He did the Exile on Main Street, and you had the...
Yeah.
Exile, yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Dramer, a hippie friend of mine. I don't know hippie is the right word, but he tends towards the jam bands. He went with Pearl Jam 10, Pink Floyd's Metal, Working Man's Dead, A Storm in Heaven by The Verve, which is a dark horse.
Wow,
Yeah.
And the Blues Brothers soundtrack.
Huh.
Yeah.
Good old Josh. I remember we were middle school chums.
Do soundtracks count?
See, they're compilations to me. Unless it's like a Judgment Night type thing or a Crow soundtrack, which a lot of those songs were original for those soundtracks.
Yeah.
Then, I think you could allow it. But most soundtracks are just compilations and greatest hits. So
Yeah, I think the Blues Brothers had a lot of original songs.
Yeah, I'll give them half credit.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
And my stepson, Jake Wilson, The Song Remains the Same by Led Zeppelin. Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1.
Ew.
Which, really?
Ew.
No.
Use Your Illusion were so overproduced.
Use Your Illusion would be great if you took the best songs off both of them and made one album out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then put them in a garage and made them play it without...
Like a little fuzzy?
Just a little more raw.
Okay. I'm surprised Jake's a big Guns N' Roses fan. I'm surprised he didn't go with Appetite, but... he knows more about he's forgotten more about music than I'll ever know. So I've got to give some credence to his opinion. Pink Floyd's The Wall, Weezer's Blue Album, and Alter Bridge, One Day Remains.
Huh.
You may not be familiar with Alter Bridge. Alter Bridge is Creed without Scott Stapp.
Yeah, I remember the band.
The vocalist is Miles Kennedy, who is outstanding. He's done a lot of work with Slash.
Oh, he was fantastic on Slash's album.
Yes. So, once again, Jake knows what he's talking about. So I've got to, I'm going to give Alter Bridge some ear time. But anyway, thanks guys for participating. We really love it when we hear from you. And hopefully we can do these kinds of things again.
Yeah. And with that, we'll get into news and notes before we hit today's main topic. Sadly, couple notable passings on the same day.
Yeah.
George Romero died at age 77. If you don't know who he is, he invented the zombie horror genre with Night of the Living Dead way back in 1968.
On a shoestring. I mean, shoestring would be generous.
Yeah. Just him and his buddies made this little film, and it influenced modern horror for decades afterwards, and is still influencing it, with The Walking Dead being the most obvious.
That's the very concept of using horror and zombies specifically to tell a story that's really about social issues.
Yeah, masking it.
Yeah, I mean, was brilliant, remains brilliant, and no one's done it better.
Yeah.
No.
The original Night of the Living Dead was about racism.
Yeah,
The Day of the Dead was about consumerism and our slavish consumeristic tendencies. George, and it's hard to get too sad about George Romero's passing, because I think he'll be back.
I knew it.
wow.
We also lost Martin Landau, one of the most, I don't want to call him underrated, but I don't think he got the credit from the mainstream that a man of his talents deserved. I mean, he was so good in so many things, most notably Ed Wood.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Absolutely.
I love that movie, and his performance was spot on.
He's not a guy where you can, his name comes up and you can sit and list 10 movies or whatever, that the average person could. But every role that he was cast in, you can't see anybody else.
No. And another really notable role was his work on Tucker, the Man in His Dreams, which another great movie.
Never saw it.
It's fantastic. It's probably one of George Lucas's top 2 or 3 films.
And so historically important.
Yeah,
really. I mean,
absolutely.
As far as the history of American industrialism, it's such an untold story.
And how they literally snuffed out the little guy.
Yeah.
Tucker is basically the modern equivalent of the electric car.
Yeah.
And how Detroit killed that. So man, Landau is so good in so many things, and we have all that work to look back on, and just appreciative to have it. Also this week, blew up the internet. Jodie Whittaker is the next Doctor Who.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
It's culturally significant.
That's a funny name for a guy.
Oh God. I think it's just great casting. I haven't seen that much of her. I have seen some of Broadchurch.
Mm-hmm.
Was never really that kind of my kind of thing. It was definitely my parents' kind of thing. So when I would visit them, I would see, sometimes when they would watch it, and I would always end up watching it because it was a really good show, even if it's not the kind of thing I would choose to watch on my own. And, she's got the gravitas to pull this off. She is, frankly, she's a very attractive woman. Not that should matter, but it does, unfortunately. And not too young for the part.
No. The most notable role I remember her in was an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
It was season 1, I think. 3rd or 4th episode, season 1. She was great in it. And it was Black Mirror, so it was a great episode. But this comes in the same year that Wonder Woman was a bona fide blockbuster. And the lead in the current Star Wars trilogy is a female.
Well, you've also got to look at it, if you're a Doctor Who fan, which I know neither of you really are.
I have watched some of the, what's his name from Jessica Jones?
David Tennant?
Thank you. I've watched some of the Tennant Who's just because Tennant is awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about the mythology.
I'm frankly daunted because there's just so much.
There is so much, and really, the only way to catch up, and this is going to be another unsolicited advertisement, the only way to really catch up, if you want to catch up, and realistically, if you just want to watch the new stuff and know what's going on, you go on Netflix and you can start watching from the 2005, soft reboot.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Which was Christopher Eccleston, who was great in the part and great for the historical. He was a great doctor for the time period in the the series continuity. That a lot of it we didn't find out until after the fact why he was such good casting for that Doctor in particular. But if you really want to start off from the beginning, and it really is just a filmed stage play, when it started out in 1963.
Oh, I was going to go back further. But yeah, I mean, this thing's been around longer than Bond, or as long as Bond?
Right about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the 50th anniversary was 2013, I believe.
Okay.
If you want to go all the way back, there's a streaming service called BritBox that is just BBC ITV productions.
Oh, Faulty Towers?
Yes.
Sweet.
Fry and Laurie, if you've ever watched that.
No, thanks. I just ate.
You know who Hugh Laurie is, right?
Yes.
You know who Stephen Fry is?
Oh, yeah.
The two of them doing sketch comedy.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Like in the 70s, early 80s.
Everyone knows Hugh Laurie, of course, from House.
Yes.
I know him from Veep.
Yeah.
He is fantastic. Everybody's fantastic on Veep. I could go on about that show forever.
Not to go on too long about this, but anyway, that's
too late.
If you want to watch all of it, that's really about the only place to do it, because BritBox actually has all 700 episodes or whatever, however many there are, starting from there's 26 seasons before the reboot. So,
well,
and they used to do, many, many episodes in a season.
The main point really isn't, I mean, that sets it up for listeners who aren't familiar with the franchise. Doctor Who is a big goddamn deal in the nerd community.
Yes.
And especially in Britain.
Yes.
So casting a female Doctor Who, this is what I found most interesting. More positive than negative.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's a British thing. If you tried to recast Indiana Jones as a woman, oh my God. Well, which they did with Tomb Raider, really. But I mean,
unfortunately didn't do it well, because I think that could be good.
If they follow the storyline from the reboot, or I'm sorry,
I'm not even saying, the Tomb Raider game storyline. I'm saying female Indiana Jones.
Okay.
I'd be sold right there.
But that's what Tomb Raider is. But if this happened in America, people would lose their shit.
Oh yeah.
And
people were losing their shit.
Yeah.
They still were.
Let's not pretend this was 100% positive.
Oh no, I'm not. But it definitely trended more positive than negative.
And the thing that this highlights once again is, and I'm a little disgusted by this, is that it seems like nerds, in a big general term, are among the most misogynist people on the planet. I mean, remember going back to Gamergate,
and some of the least socially progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
at least when it comes to touching their toys.
Is that it's not so much male female, it's canon, and don't mess with canon.
Well,
and not the canon in my pants.
They don't want people to mess with canon. That's very strong force in their heads. And when it gets tied in with gender or orientation or anything like that, then those two things get tied together in their head, where the defense of established canon becomes an excuse to then also be misogynistic.
Or racist.
And that's, it's what I was going to say, is this is coming off of the most recent season, the last season with Peter Capaldi, who was awesome as the Doctor.
No David Tennant, but go on.
And his companion in that season was a black lesbian. And I don't remember seeing a lot of response to that.
But that role traditionally, at least in the modern time, has been female.
Yeah.
Karen Gillan, who people will know from Guardians of the Galaxy,
yes,
is Nebula. I mean, she was a companion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, things are changing.
Which and the original series didn't used to be that way. There was a pretty constant circulation of companions, and just as many male as female.
Almost Murphy Brown-esque.
Yeah.
Also last week, 1 trillion tons of ice broke away from Antarctica, creating the largest iceberg in recorded human history.
The size of Delaware, I think I heard.
So yay, we did it, everybody.
Mission accomplished.
We broke the planet.
Also, there was, I don't know how it got started, but a rumor that Kid Rock was going to be making a run for the Senate in Michigan, which, on the surface, you're like, ew. But it just seems like self-promotion. I don't think this has legs.
Yeah, I said that about Donald Trump's presidency too.
Yeah, that's why I give pause to.
Yeah,
I'm saying the first thing you've got to do if you're going to be a serious candidate is run under a real name.
Adult Rock.
Yeah,
I stole that from Robert Brockway. That was
okay.
He put that on Twitter. It was funny. Before we get into the real news, some footage of Infinity War was shown to people at D3, which is Disney's own con. Disney is so big now.
Disney has a con?
They have their own con.
D23, right?
D23.
Please tell me there's princess cosplay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, we know what Bob's doing after the show. Or maybe
I'm not waiting until after.
So it's the first look anybody's had at this. And mind you, this has only been in production since February. It hasn't been in
something like that.
Yeah, it hasn't been in production that long. It brought everybody to their feet.
Well, the descriptions I don't know if you were even willing to read the descriptions.
Yes,
descriptions were insane.
Unreal. If we're not going to spoil it here, if you want to read the descriptions, go Google it. It's out there.
And this is new to me. I'm asking you, were people insane because this is just new information for them, or was it that good that they were?
Apparently, nobody has ever seen this batshit awesome crazy in the MCU.
Okay.
Some of the shit they were doing. And just, some of the pairings of heroes and stuff, they were losing their shit over. And from all reports, it looked amazing.
Okay.
So they took a cue from Doctor Strange and Guardians as far as color palettes and how to use digital effects, which up to those movies, really Marvel has struggled with. Their special effects don't translate well at all. They didn't in Homecoming either, which was a disappointment.
Right.
But as for real news,
where to begin?
The son of the sitting U.S. president admitted to talking to the Russians, rather. And oh God,
but it's okay because he didn't learn anything.
Yeah. There was
that's my favorite comparison to that is the To Catch a Predator.
Yeah.
I showed up to the house. There was no teenage girl there. What's, no harm, no foul.
I brought the M&Ms.
I brought the wine coolers and condoms. Where's the crime? Yeah. So yes, this isn't a smoking gun, but it shows Donald Trump Jr.'s willingness to wrap his lips around the smoking gun.
Well, is it not a smoking gun?
No,
I mean, it's not a smoking gun for Donald Trump Sr. But as far as someone committing collusion, by the legal definition, he's met the standards. He's met, intent. He solicited the information. He agreed to receive it. Whether he received it or not is not an element of the crime.
And he published all of it on Twitter.
Yes.
to the dismay of a Politico / New York Times reporter who's been working on this story since last August.
Yeah.
He's texted out, he's like, I've been working on this story for almost a year, and he just tweeted it.
He scooped it.
I got scooped.
I mean, that was the point.
Yeah.
That was the only, I won't say clever, but, the only rational part of this was he wanted to get it out before the Times published it. because he knew they had it.
Yeah, and in response to that, all the Trumps, shook up their legal teams.
Yeah.
They dumped the family lawyers in favor of like veteran DC criminal defense attorneys. So that was one that almost flew under the radar, but significant nonetheless.
And I kind of liken this to buying a bag of oregano and then being arrested for possession of pot.
Yeah.
He didn't walk away from this meeting with anything, but it showed the campaign's willingness to collude with the Russian government.
But I guess my point is, under the law that covers this, his willingness to collude is all it takes.
Right.
Yes.
Intent.
He colluded.
So you throw him on the same pile with Flynn and Sessions.
And Manafort.
Well, no, he's in worse shape than they are.
They're the ones that actually, those three, and probably I'm not too familiar with Manafort's involvement, other than that he was involved in some way.
Well, he was supposedly at this meeting.
Yeah, he was at the meeting.
So everybody around Donald Trump.
So was Kushner.
Everybody surrounding the current U.S. president, except maybe his youngest son, has some kind of blood on their hands. And we still can't tie it to the president.
And I don't think we ever will.
Me neither.
I think a bunch of heads will roll because of this. I think the president will walk away weakened, but still president.
Yeah, same. James?
Unless I see something else, it's hard for me to disagree.
Yeah.
All right, we can put that next to bed.
I don't think that's how it should end. I still find it difficult to imagine that all this could have gone on without the president knowing about it. But if he was that well shielded, then
it does seem a stretch. But yeah, facts are what they are right now.
Yeah.
That's all we know. Another thing we know about POTUS, when he met Emmanuel Macron's wife, he couldn't stop hitting on her. He said, quote, "You're in such good shape. She is in such good physical shape. Beautiful." And, did the Donald squeeze. And later, he shook Macron's hand for a solid 28 seconds.
Yeah, okay, we're living in a post-Billy Bush era.
Yes.
Which means that you can't just say he did the Trump squeeze and not explain that.
Even to his own daughter, Trump likes squeezing women. Like, takes them by the shoulders or the hips.
He didn't grab her by the
lower abdominal area.
No. Okay.
Also, the White House has devolved into using visual gags on Fox News. Did you guys catch that one?
No.
Oh, with Kellyanne Conway. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a horribly failed attempt at prop comedy.
It was somewhere between prop comedy and the OJ trial.
A little bit. It produced some great memes. Again, this presidency is spot on for the memes. And as far as the Senate healthcare bill, that's...
Well, I mean, I think Mitch McConnell should send John McCain a get well basket because they have postponed voting on it because McCain had a blood clot removed and his doctor recommended that he stay in Arizona to recuperate. So now they're holding the vote until he gets better. In reality, they don't have the votes. And any attempt to get the votes to get to 50, it's like squeezing a balloon. You squeeze the right and the moderates, you lose votes from the moderates. You try to coerce the moderates, you lose votes from conservatives. Welcome to big tent governing, GOP. You wanted a big tent, you've got a big tent, now you can't govern it. I don't see a way they get to 50 votes. But at least
their totals have just been shrinking.
Yes,
like as time has gone on,
it's
gotten worse.
So it's interesting. What I've heard from my sources The hard nose right now are Susan Collins and Rand Paul. You couldn't get any more different ideologically than, well, you could, but those would probably represent the two ends of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So the fact that a libertarian and a moderate Republican are both against this, they only need one more defection and this bill's dead. And from what I hear, Mike Lee is leaning no.
There's 7 or 8 that are soft.
Yes. But Lee has said he won't vote for it unless the Cruz amendment is added.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask how Cruz's involvement, because they let him draw up the amendment as a way to appease him and his ilk. And it doesn't seem to have made much difference.
I don't know if they could get to 50 votes with the Cruz amendment. I know it would be devastating for healthcare.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But no, I don't see a path to passing this bill.
And devastating to some re-election chances.
I would have to imagine that a bill with the Cruz amendment actually added to it would lose, Murkowski.
What's her name from West Virginia?
More Capito.
Yeah.
And maybe more.
Yeah.
So
thanks for playing, GOP.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's just kind of hanging out waiting for John McCain to come back.
And I think I've said this before. The bill that they put together in that closed room with McConnell and a couple of the leaders and 4 or 5 other people, that was the bill that was supposed to get to 50.
Yeah.
And any movement that they made after that was only going to drain votes from one side or the other.
Like Ricotta said, it's
that
like
was
Mercury.
that was their best shot, and they missed. And now it's just dragging out.
Yeah, and I can't fathom. I don't know what they could do right now to save it at all.
No.
I can't think of it. And stay true to, the repeal and replace edict.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't think there's a thing they can do to it to make it more palatable.
And that's, and the reality is what they've got right now doesn't really amount to a repeal.
No.
There's too much of the Obamacare infrastructure they're leaving in place. Even if they were to pass this and say, we kept our promise, we repealed and replaced Obamacare, not really the case.
Yeah.
So, and this is really a worst case scenario for the GOP because they're left with Obamacare. They didn't keep their promises, but they put forth such bad bills that Democrats are going to run on them anyway. So they angered the right and they angered the left.
Yeah.
And maybe put some of their own in jeopardy as far as re-election goes. I mean, this is like an albatross around everybody's necks who's in a close race in their home districts or home states.
So my question are Republicans going to actually act like statesmen and get together with Democrats who agree that there are problems with the Affordable Care Act and actually work towards fixing the things that don't work right now or work poorly?
Yep. We just had some technical difficulties, but we're good.
We just lost our monitor, but we're good.
Okay.
We'll survive.
Because there are Democrats who say, yes, there are problems with the Affordable Care Act. Let's fix them. And are there enough Republicans who want to either save face or actually do good that they can cobble together a majority? And will the leadership let them do it?
I just don't see it happening. I think the only way that works, you end up with a bill that's got primarily Democratic votes, and at that point, it's no, it's just not going to happen.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, other than
I think it'd be a lot easier to get 30 moderate Democrats, because this is the Senate, and 20 moderate Republicans if they could come up with that many and pass a moderate bill. But at that point, they're not going to call the vote.
Right.
Right.
McConnell will never let it come to the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, those were really the two biggest things that happened news-wise last week. So we'll move on to our main topic. We put it out there on the Facebook and Twitter.
And if we had a producer at this point, they would go to REM's "I Am Superman" because that would be a great segue song. But we're pretty low budget around here.
Yeah, I mean, we could have played it on our phone.
That's, you know, if we want to go low budget, we could go with Pocket Full of Kryptonite.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cheap.
Or what's that band with the
Crash Test Dummies.
Crash Test Dummies? They had a Superman song.
Yeah.
So the question we put out there this week, is Superman a good character? Kind of vaguely worded.
And not good as in good versus evil, but good as in...
Does he still hold up? I pitched it on Twitter. Is he a hero for the ages or kind of an outmoded icon? And 2/3 of the people who took the poll said he's still a heroic icon and every bit as relevant as he was back in, 38? And Siegel and Schuster created him?
Yeah.
So... really, it's not really a debate, more of a discussion.
Yeah.
Is Superman relevant in this era of dark and gritty and flawed superheroes, or just, icons in general?
Well, and I've seen so many people arguing that you just can't tell a good story with Superman. And that's, I think, why I find as someone who majored in literature, I come to this from the perspective of not is he a good character culturally, but is he a character you can write good stories about? And so many people have said no. Just over the years in internet videos, in essays, that there's nothing.
How do you challenge a god?
There's nothing empathetic about him. There's nothing identifiable to the average person where you can get inside this character and feel what he feels. There's no, and exactly what Bob said. It's if he's not vulnerable, if he can't be hurt, how do you write a good story about it?
I mean, you can only go to the Kryptonite well so many times.
Yeah.
And they went there so many times, they created different colors of kryptonite for different...
There's so much goddamn kryptonite floating around, they could rebuild the planet.
They wrote themselves into a mess with all that stuff.
And we did get one detailed response. Have you got that? Or you want me to...
Yeah, I can bring that up, but go on and fill time.
What I was going to do was respond to that. So,
well, Bob, explain to us Superman's powers.
Well, it depends on the writer. It depends on the week. Depends on what they need him to do. He can fly, which, interesting fact, when he was created, he couldn't fly.
Yeah.
He could just jump really far. He's
able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
But not fly over them.
Yes.
He's incredibly strong. In fact... I don't know how they did this, but in one comic book, they tried to measure his strength. He bench pressed the weight of the earth for 6 days straight before breaking a sweat. That kind of strong.
So ridiculous.
Sounds like the kind of thing that would have happened in whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
Perhaps. Is that Grant Morrison?
No.
That's All-Star Superman, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to cite that.
And it could have been All-Star too. I mean, there was a lot of weird things going on in both of those.
So he's got laser vision. He's got frost breath. He's got, if you believe the movies, he's got logo power where he can throw his logo at bad guys and wrap them in cellophane.
Yeah, but that was Richard Lester.
Saran wrap.
My nemesis.
The only thing that defeats me.
Am I missing any? I mean, He's nigh invulnerable.
The apparent ability, depending on, again, the writer, the apparent ability to erase memories at will
Yeah.
With a kiss.
with a kiss. Maybe he could have done it another way. We'll never know.
And it's so difficult because you have the mainstream Superman, which people know from the Chris Reeves movies and more now from Zack Snyder's movies. And then you have the comic books, which even if it's an Elseworlds tale or part of the continuity, they are so starkly different. But in response to James's question about our commenter, Eric Hoffman wrote, I wonder if you guys will talk about Russia this week. Oh, and Superman is a dick. He's a fake news reporter reporting fake news for that liberal rag, the Daily Planet. Not to mention his mockery of how he tries to conform within our society. His arrogance is a slap in the face of us all. Hot take.
Yeah.
Hot take.
That was, I think the later part in there was a reference to the famous Kill Bill
Yeah.
speech from David Carradine, who did such a great job delivering it that I think people internalized it more than they should have.
Right.
And other people have refuted that speech before, and I won't be anywhere near the best or anywhere within years of the first. But to be clear, if you follow the comic book origin story and you look at the character as he was created and as he's developed, not so much in the movies or after some of the reboots and stuff in the comics, but the classic Superman character. What Tarantino is saying there is almost 180 degrees wrong.
Yeah.
Superman is Clark Kent before he's Superman. He was raised Clark Kent. And so the Clark Kent character is not anything that he puts on. That's not an indictment of humanity. It's who he is. And one thing I think both of you guys have heard me pitch this idea so many times. DC has their Elseworlds line, and they've done, at one point, they did Superman Red Sun.
Yeah.
Where they had the idea of Superman spacecraft crashing in Soviet Russia and what that would be like. And I've always wondered if they should do an Elseworlds story where Superman's ship crashes in Kansas in the 1980s and is raised with those values. Not as we imagine them from the 40s, 30s,
Right.
50s, but as they are now.
Or like in the middle of a meth cooking trailer park.
Well,
How would that influence Clark Kent? Because to your point, he was raised by just two hardworking, good people.
yeah, and that's, fundamentally that's the core of the character to me. That's why we trust Superman. He's an alien with almost unlimited powers. Why do we trust him? Because he was raised with mom and dad apple pie American values. He was raised in that America that never really existed, that we imagine.
So this begs the nature versus nurture argument. Are his values a product of his upbringing, or are they who he is? Would he have turned out that way no matter where he crashed?
Well, and that's what Red Sun explores, and we don't have enough time to get into that.
The other thing you can't discount in this scenario is all the information that his mother and father gave him in his ship.
Yeah.
I mean...
But would it have covered, say, in the Kansas scenario? Could we have ended up with a Superman who thought that there was absolutely no more threatening issue to the United States than the millions of unborn babies being killed every year? And whose primary activity was destroying abortion clinics? who knows?
Right.
We have this image of
I don't think I want to.
truth, justice, and the American
Bob's
way.
very put off right now.
I don't want to read that comic book.
Yeah. Well, and we have this image of truth, justice, and the American way, and we all project onto it what we want to. We're all just allowed to believe that what Superman believes is good and right is what we personally, individually believe is good and right. It doesn't ever get that granular.
Right.
He's always put up against things that are really obvious. There's not a lot of moral ambiguity in Superman books.
No.
It's usually worldwide threats and luckily enough, it makes sense because what else do you call Superman for?
That's why I wanted to point out Grant Morrison's run on All-Star Superman from 2005 to 2008. It was a 12-issue bi-monthly series. And
all of the All-Star books took way longer than they should have.
they took long, but the All-Star Superman is probably the best run. Apologies to Roger Stern, our homeboy from Ithaca. Roger Stern wrote him in the 80s.
Yeah.
And really piggybacked off the Superman film to build that image through that era. And then Grant Morrison, who, if you've never listened to this podcast or don't know who Grant Morrison is, he is known for batshit insane, crazy stuff.
If you are a comic book fan and you haven't read Grant Morrison's run on Animal Man, read it.
Or Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
Or Arkham Asylum. What he did for that basically moved Batman forward. But this is the most grounded Superman story you will probably ever read. He's overexposed to the sun because of some experiment gone awry, shocker, and he's dying. And he knows he's going to die. So he basically reveals everything to Lois Lane, lets her know that, hey, Clark Kent and I are the same. But the most touching moment, which to me encapsulates exactly what Superman should be, what I want the character to be, is when he talked a suicidal teenager off a building. And, the teenager poured his heart out to Superman, and Superman just gives him a hug.
And crushes him.
Yeah. All these worldwide threats and all that, it's fine. But no, Superman was the only person that could have flown to the top of that building to talk that kid down. And that was one of the best moments in that run that Morrison did. And it was so against the kind of thing Morrison does.
Yeah.
Because when you think Morrison, you're always like, oh, okay, this is going to get weird. This is the guy behind a sentient sidewalk.
Yeah.
And he can write something like that.
Well,
but that to me is probably, that's what we want Superman to be. I don't need Superman to, kick the shit out of Brainiac all the time or whatever. To me, that's what Superman should be.
And that story, like Kingdom Come, like Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which is one of my favorites. And I know I'm going to get grief for this, but the death and return of Superman, which it was so symptomatic of so many things that were going wrong in the comic industry at the time. But I think taken on its own is not a bad run.
Yeah, it really is, James. It's pretty bad. All the derivatives of Superman that spawned. I mean, come on.
An attempt to explore different aspects of the character.
Failed attempts. Each and every one.
We can agree to disagree. My point is not to argue that the death and return was good. My point is that my favorite Superman stories are the stories that could only be told with Superman.
Ah, I gotcha. Okay.
And, for all that the comic book industry went crazy with, Batman and, later with Captain America, with killing off characters or doing other things to them,
breaking their backs,
sending them back in time,
making them clones.
Yeah. To try and shake things up and to draw that event comic audience, which they got so addicted to.
They wanted collector edition worthy events. That's what fueled that crazy run in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, we want first appearances, we want deaths, we want things that people are going to flood the stores with, and in doing so, destroyed the collector market.
But there's a fundamental difference between, much as the Batman breaking his back was a better arc.
I liked Nightfall.
Than the Death and Return of Superman. There's a fundamental difference between those in that the hole that Superman leaves in the DC Comics universe is not comparable to any other character.
No, on either Marvel or DC.
No. And that's where I feel like what writers need to do with Superman is go bigger or smaller.
And that dovetails perfectly with my problem with Superman. And it's really a problem with the comic book genre in general. I think superheroes and comic books suffer from what I call power creep. You know, they start out as fairly grounded characters with, they could teleport or they could shoot lasers out of their eyes. And then they have to do something heroic, and then they discover a new power. So they have to have new enemies that are more powerful. And eventually they become gods. And, Superman didn't start out as a god. He was a regular superhero.
But he was pretty much as powerful as superheroes got in the Golden Age.
Yes.
And every time they tried to up the ante with a new character, because
it was in response.
He was really the first superhero per se.
Yeah,
and so he sold well, so they just started making more, and they got more powerful. So they had to keep upping the ante on Superman, so nobody overshadowed him being the original. And I know Ricardo and I have talked about this back when Marvel lost their shit and made Iceman one of the most powerful mutants to ever exist.
Yeah. I would love to see an event that depowers everybody in the DC or Marvel universe, a comet or something that dials their powers back down to 2 so that they're,
But is that going to happen?
No, of course
not.
Not.
Fundamentally, the perspective I'm coming from is we're stuck with what we've got.
Yes. And you're right.
And
if we have got Superman as a god, then yes, we can't keep looking for bigger foes for him to fight. They've got to become internal. They've got to be small.
Well, and that's just to give examples. And this is where I thought Eric Hoffman's comment kind of brought something up for me when he talked about the fact that he's a news reporter. He's a news reporter as Clark Kent, whose life is based around a lie. He's constantly lying about his identity.
As are most Avengers, masked or otherwise.
But they're not reporters.
Right.
They're
Billionaire
bound
playboy
by
philanthropists.
They're not bound by ethics to tell the public the truth. And I think there are stories there to be told about Clark Kent that no one's really tried to tell.
Like what? He missed a deadline?
No, like what does he do when he's working on a story and he becomes involved as Superman? How do you write ethically that story without revealing your own involvement?
James,
how do you
dive?
How do you hand it over to someone else because you're too close to it without explaining to them why?
Call in sick? I mean, how else?
God, you've never taken a sick day.
I think that fundamental conflict between his obligation to get the truth and print it, as as the most basic, tenet of journalism, his obligation to that, and his pretense that he is not Superman, is underexplored. That's the smaller end, just as an example. The larger end, and the thing that it's been touched on a little bit, but I don't think anyone's really gone all out to explore. Superman is basically invulnerable. He can do anything he wants.
Except to one of the 5 colors of kryptonite.
Yeah. And so the threats usually have to be to someone else. And so he's this guy who's completely in control of his own world. But there are people he cares about that are in danger all the time from a world they don't have control over. And to me, Superman almost has to be at some point explored as a metaphor for parenthood.
Wow.
And it goes further because this has been dealt with a lot. How much do you do? It's the worst Superman movie, and I don't care how bad you think Batman versus Superman was.
Oh, don't say it. It was a good movie. You're going to say it, aren't you?
Superman 4.
Oh, I thought you were
Quest
going
for Peace?
Superman Returns.
No.
I like Superman Returns. Yeah, the Quest for Peace was terrible.
Superman 4, where he takes all of the nuclear weapons in the world, which, by the way, at that point in the Cold War, there were about 30,000 on each side. We're talking missiles that are nearly 100 feet tall. So to put them in a bag...
trying to go for realism in Superman 4?
To put them in a bag would be a little difficult. But anyway, how much do you do to protect the human race from themselves without stunting them from actually growing out of these things?
So it's like the Star Trek dilemma of observe but don't interfere.
But at the same time, it's got that parental element at the same time. Like, how much can you keep saving people from their own mistakes?
But so often the threats are big giant monsters or a Lex Luthor robot or
because
Superman.
people are trying to avoid that moral ambiguity. I mean, and it's, and there's also, and this was gotten into, oddly enough, not with Superman, in Kingdom Come. It was actually the Flash in that case, where in that book, which is set in the future, you've got the Flash basically as a constant red blur throughout Central City at that point. Yeah. Because he can never stop running, because a cat might fall out of a tree, or somebody might get mugged, or somebody might trip and fall down the stairs and break their neck. And he can never, ever stop running. And to me, that has to be part of the mindset of Superman 2, is
also
if you, yeah. And this is where, you almost can't avoid getting into theology.
Oh, it's inescapable.
The free will argument? Or?
Well, not even free will, but the existence of evil. If God is omnipotent, why does evil exist? And, the philosophical argument on the other side is, if you have the power to prevent evil, if you're so omnipotent that the ability to prevent evil is trivial, then not doing so is almost morally indistinguishable from committing it yourself. So, how does Superman get around the monotheistic problem of evil. You know, how is he not responsible for everything in the world that he could possibly prevent, which is almost everything, with the speed and the strength and the capabilities that the writers have given him?
That theme is explored more heavily in the Batman comics. You know, Gotham was a bit of a cesspit, but because of Batman's existence, all the crazies came out and made it 5 times worse.
Well, but I'm not talking about whether Superman is creating.
But that theme is explored probably better in the Batman comics and related, movies and media than it is in Superman, because everybody that gets their crack at Superman wants to pit him up against something physically his equal or superior.
Yeah.
Which is why I like Kingdom Come also, him and Marvel thrown down.
Yeah.
That was pretty badass.
So here are the stories that
Kingdom Come is just a great book, by the way. If you haven't read it.
Yeah. Here are the stories I'd like to see. And I'll go away from Superman and talk about The Flash. They've made The Flash so insanely fast. And you guys know much more about DC than I do, so tell me if they've already done this. How does The Flash live as a human being? I mean, things must be so painfully slow to him that how does he not go insane?
Or just sustain himself, like eating wise and things like that.
That's been explored more on the TV show than it ever has been in the books.
Yeah, it's
like the level of caloric intake he needs to maintain his metabolism.
But being the Flash and having a conversation with a human being must be so maddening, because we're talking in such slow motion. I can't imagine him not going slowly insane. Similar,
and that's one of those things where it's almost, we're deconstructing Superman so much, and yet at the same time, at some level, you just have to say it's a comic.
It's a comic book.
There are so many things that don't make sense about the Flash's abilities,
like his ability to time travel.
Well, and that was a lot of that was dialed back after Flashpoint, and the
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Well, this much more recently, Flashpoint, which led into the New 52, which has since been rebooted again. Yeah. But I think the time travel thing has really been downplayed because of how bad things got there. Like, there's so many things that don't make, how do his clothes stay on? how does if you traveled fast enough, the assumption is that in order to go back in time, what he's doing is running faster than the speed of light.
Right. But that doesn't go...
If, as explored in XKCD, an online web comic series, xkcd.com, look it up, it's awesome. They do a series of explainers called What If? And there was one where they talked about what would happen if you threw a baseball at, and I think this was only like 0.5 C, 0.5, half the speed of light. And basically what happens is it only gets half an inch from the pitcher's glove before it turns into a fusion explosion, because the ball is traveling so fast that the atoms in the air can't get out of the way, and they fuse with the atoms in the ball and destroy most of the Earth.
So, okay.
This coming from a legitimate theoretical physicist. Right. So nothing about that makes sense.
All right. So have they done this story? We've established that Superman is probably as near immortal as you get in the DC universe. How does he live with the fact that everyone he cares about is going to die long before he is? Like, he's...
Who wants to live forever?
I was just going to say, these themes were explored in Highlander.
Who wants to live forever?
And of all the songs off that soundtrack, he chose that one.
It was relevant to the topic.
But somewhere in Superman's mind, how can he get attached to Lois Lane when he knows that, long after she's dead, he's still going to be a young man?
And probably boning Wonder Woman because every writer wants to get him there for some reason.
You already have.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying that's always their go-to if Lois Lane is ever out of the way, like in Kingdom Come.
Yep.
But it's God, Superman at Earth's End, Elseworlds book where it's so post-apocalyptic that it's just like tribes of nomadic people, and Superman is still around with just like a long white beard. It's a terrible, terrible book.
Oh, okay. I was like,
there's nothing good about it, but
yeah, I would like to explore some of these psychological issues of being omnipotent.
Yeah, Morrison touched on a lot of those in his run, and like I said, it was just expertly done. That's kind of my go-to for all the Superman stuff, which is why it really bothers me of how he's been handled in Warner Brothers, I guess, reboot of the Superman movies under Zack Snyder's care.
The fact that they haven't taken any of the lessons that have been learned from nearly 100 years of the comic's existence.
The best joke I saw on Twitter after Man of Steel came out was they showed the comics panel of Superman talking the suicidal kid off the building to Zack Snyder's vision of the suicidal kid on the building and Superman just crashing through the building, blowing a city block apart. It's so disappointing to me and to a lot of other people how that character's been handled. And Zack Snyder obviously hates Superman. To kill him in his, essentially, Batman v Superman was a Man of Steel sequel. To kill him off? And I mean, and make him a brooding dick all the time. It's so disappointing. And there's going to be a bunch of people whose first realization of what Superman is going to be those goddamn movies. And it's just ultra disappointing.
Someone's first exposure to Star Wars was Jar Jar Binks, so
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really hope Warner's has learned their lesson. And when they eventually bring Superman back, because how can you not? That they'll take more of a lead from what Patty Jenkins did with Wonder Woman. You can still do the big effects movie, but tailor that character back towards, the source material. Quit trying to put a modern Wolverine spin or Punisher type spin on goddamn Superman. They need to get back to that. And I think that's a large reason why we're having this conversation is because they really have gotten away from that.
They lost the character.
Yeah.
And I think why this has been in my head so much the last couple of years is
years.
Yeah.
Wow.
The argument in response when people say, well, they don't understand how to write Superman is that Superman is a terrible character to begin with. What would you do with him?
Oh, damn difficult. I mean, can you imagine doing a Superman run of 10 years?
Yeah.
And every month trying to come up with stuff for him to do?
Well, and I'm not sure that Superman is a character that is well suited to a monthly regular.
No.
That doesn't mean there aren't good stories you can tell with him.
Right. And the way DC is structured, they can do those Elseworlds type stories and have fun with it.
I have not seen them, so this is just coming from other people's opinions. But I've heard that actually the way that the Supergirl TV show has handled Superman has been interesting.
It's a slightly different, but it's okay. It doesn't...
And basically using him as a force that's sort of unseen, just out there.
Yep. Once in a while, they have an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... But even Supergirl has that problem. The television series. God, there's not enough for her to do.
And it's, fundamentally, it's when you've got a character, I talked months ago now about an anime I had watched called One Punch Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Which is now on Netflix.
Yeah. And I still think you should watch it.
I think
it's
I
very
will.
Good.
I
it's
will.
very good. And it deals with some of these issues. This is a guy who lost all interest in life at the beginning of the series because he wanted to be a hero and he became so good at it that nothing was a challenge. And I think when you're stuck with a character like that, because I don't think you go backwards on Superman. I don't think you can.
No.
I think the way the superhero universe as a whole works, and I'm counting Marvel and DC, and Image, if you want to. Superman has got to be at the top of the heap. And I don't think
by a large margin, I would think.
Yeah, well, and
although sensibilities have changed,
has to be as in is required to be. And I don't think even Marvel would never attempt to put out a character that unless it's some cosmic villain or some the whatever, but that's nobody wants to make a character more powerful than Superman.
Right.
So if you're stuck with that, if you're stuck with this character is basically all powerful, then you can't tell stories that are about him fighting somebody anymore.
No.
You've got to be more creative than that. And I'm not saying that's easy. I don't think it's impossible.
He's been, what, 80 years?
Yeah.
Close to
almost.
Close to 80 years this character's been around. And it had to find shit for him to do. I mean,
and
that's daunting.
For most of the Silver Age, it was being a dick to people.
Yeah. And he had pets.
Yeah. And 73 Kryptonian characters.
Yeah.
Last son of sort of Krypton.
And then the Krypton neighbor that got swept up in the blast. And oh my God. Another thing that I totally forgot to mention while I was ripping WB and Zack Snyder's vision was the Injustice games.
Yeah.
What a horrible, nightmarish vision for Superman.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's terrible. Have you familiar?
Good games.
Yeah, Joker somehow tricks Superman into blowing Metropolis up or some shit.
Yeah.
And obviously loses everybody, Lois, Jimmy Olsen, all that shit. And Superman snaps. It's like, nope, can't have this anymore. And just starts going around murdering people.
It basically sets him up as sets himself up as dictator of the planet.
Yeah. And he's like, nope, not doing this anymore. I run things now. Almost to James's really earlier point. And it's just horrible. Like the whole, I played the story mode and I was like, yep, I never need to go through that again.
That's a Mortal Kombat type game, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really well made though.
Super well made.
No, and I don't think it's a bad story.
It's really not. I don't need that.
I'm not.
It's not
there's
my thing.
There's lots of things I don't need that I think are well done.
Persona 5?
Schindler's List. I saw it once. I don't need to see it again.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean I don't think it was well done.
Yeah. No, but it's that kind of vision of Superman that it's like, man, when are we going to get out of that? Because it's been almost 20 years of this dystopian Superman shit. And don't you want to feel good about these characters again, ever? Anybody? Or have we gone dark and that's it?
I think feeling good about superheroes is corny in this day and age.
Despite the Marvel movies, which are raking in all the monies, And they're a delight to watch, most of them.
Yeah, but I don't think kids grow up wanting to be Captain America.
Well, and that's, them's the fundamental differences between DC and Marvel. Marvel has characters that you identify with. DC has characters that you look up to.
Nicely put.
Nice. I think that's a good...
DC's,
You should really do some writing, James.
DC's Holy Trinity is iconic, and none of them are really anybody you could put yourself in their head.
No.
Not even the one with no superpowers at all is a super genius billionaire who is always 27 chess steps ahead of everyone else.
I had to explain this to coworkers that Batman is not a superhero. He's a vigilante. Superman's a superhero, and Deadpool's an anti-hero. That's how you're supposed to rank them. So stop calling Batman a superhero. Same goes for Punisher.
That's, if somebody wrote a comic one day where they explained that he was born with twice the brain matter as everyone else, it would explain a lot to me.
Well, by that definition, Captain America is not a superhero.
But he is.
No, he's not.
He has superpowers.
He doesn't. The super serum was supposed to allow him to operate at peak human performance. Mm-hmm. That's not superpowers. That's just
pretty
being
super,
all
Bob.
you can be. That's like being in the army.
No.
That's exactly like being in the army, since that's where he went. But anyway.
No, I mean, seriously, he is what human beings could be if they used 100% of their abilities and were trained.
The only reason he got there is because they put something super in him.
True. Okay.
I believe he is a mutate, not a mutant. Totally a superhero. Daredevil is he walks the fence. I mean, he has superpowers, but they don't. He also has
superpowers that are in retrospect actually considered incredibly offensive.
His superpowers allow him to do what normal people can do.
Yeah. Well, the whole your other senses heighten when you lose your vision is like, blind people hate that.
But he got it through a chemical spill.
Yeah.
So it's not like he went blind and all of a sudden he had to get chemicals dumped in his damn eyes for that to happen.
Yeah.
So blind people can get over that. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation. He has his superpowers. So we totally got away from Superman. Is anyone surprised we got away from Superman?
It's like, if you'll forgive me and I don't say this, never mind.
Yeah.
I just won't. I was gonna make a comment about the source of Solomon Grundy's powers, but I just won't.
Well, if you want to reach us on Twitter,
like, share, and subscribe.
Anyway, we really enjoy these conversations, obviously, because we went on and on and on about it, but this is the kind of stuff that gets us hard.
We may have gone off the rail. It's got away from us a little bit.
A little bit. And no drinking. This is a sober podcast, and it went off the rails.
Yeah.
So we should do this again next week, I think.
I think so. I think
not the same topic.
No.
I think we've thoroughly run that into the ground.
I think we should talk about the thing's penis.
Yeah, like, would he have an erection?
Or is it always erect?
Yeah. I mean, the rocks.
Is he circumcised? He's Jewish. Is he circumcised?
And when he flexes, like...